Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Tim Weigel. I am the Grape and Hops IPM Specialist with the New York State IPM Program and Team Leader of the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. And it's a beautiful spring day here, first week in April in the Lake Erie region, and I've been getting a lot of calls about weed management. And you know, this is a really good time if you haven't started thinking about weed management. It's a great time to start. One of the things that we don't think enough about with our weed management programs is the resistance management strategy. I know we talk a lot about that with our insecticides and with our fungicides, and it's also really important with herbicides. If I think back to 30 years ago when I started in this position, we used Princep and Carmex. That was the tank mix that went on, and it went on every year. And over the years, we saw where we needed higher and higher rates to be effective, and then it got to the point where it really wasn't effective at all. And what happened is that it just quit working. The microbes in the soil actually build up and were feeding on the herbicides that were being put down, and that's why we had to use more and more of them. And it got to the point where we just needed to quit using them. We were using SolidCAM if we had hard to control grasses and that. We'd throw a SolidCAM in every once in a while, but it was expensive, so we didn't use it that often. And guess what? SolidCAM still works. 30 years later, we're using it. Reason why? We didn't use it every year. So if we take that information and we look at how to attack the weeds nowadays, is that, you know, don't use the same products year after year. If you have been to the grower conferences that we've had lately, John Wallace from Cornell, he's now at Penn State, weed scientist, and Brian Brown with the New York State IPM program. He's an integrated weed management specialist. You know, they came in and they've talked about some of the Roundup resistant weeds and how we have mare's tail or horseweed, and it's resistant to Roundup. We can put on as high a rate as legally possible, and it's not touching it. People have switched over to Cheetah or Rely and have found that that works really well. But both John and Brian have warned us, you know, if they develop resistance to Roundup, these weeds can also pretty easily develop resistance to the new materials that we're putting on there. So we shouldn't jump from one material to another material, use it solely as the only thing that we're doing to manage that weed and expect that we won't see resistance to it. So hopefully last year you went out and weed mapped, so you know what weeds are there. You know whether you have broadleaves or grasses, annuals, perennials, that type of thing. So you can tailor your weed management herbicide program for that. You know, maybe look at different things. They talked about mowing, especially in the row middles. Mowing for mare's tail is a good management strategy. So look at what weeds you have there. Look at what materials you've used in the past. Look at what materials you have available to you that haven't been used. Maybe some of the more expensive materials, but you use it once, you knock the weeds down, and then you can go back to using some of the less expensive herbicides. The Weed Society of America has come out with resistance groups, so you can look at the group number. It's really easy, and if an herbicide has the same number or group number as another herbicide, you know that they are very similar, and you won't be able to switch those out for resistance management. But by changing numbers, it's pretty easy to come up with a resistance management program. And if you're interested in the Weed Society of America codes, group codes, you can get a copy of the 2019 Pennsylvania and New York Pest Management Guidelines for Grapes, and in the table, herbicide table, Brian Brown has put in all the group codes, so it's very easy. You have it all in one spot, and you can develop your resistance management program using that. So if you have any questions on weed management, give me a call, send me an email, stop by the office here at Clairol in Portland, New York. And if you have any suggestions or comments for other podcasts in the future, please put it in the comment sections below.